Okay, so today's video we're going to start by looking at how to solve an inequality. So we're going to be solving them algebraically, and then we're also going to be graphing our solutions on this video. So the first thing is, what the heck is an inequality? An inequality is any equation that has a greater than or equal to, a less than or equal to, or it may even have a does not equal in place of the equal sign. When you solve an inequality, you're going to solve it the same as an equation that has an equal sign. That means we need to distribute, we need to collect our like terms on each side of the inequality, and we need to isolate the variable. The only catch is when you solve an inequality, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to reverse the inequality. So what I'm saying when we have that, if we divide by a negative, a greater than will reverse and become a less than. If we have a less than or equal to, when we divide by a negative, it's going to switch to be a greater than or equal to. So that's going to be a small catch that we just kind of have to pay attention to. So the instructions are almost always going to be solve the inequality and then graph the solution on a number line. So, I mean, the instruction should be fairly straightforward. When we graph the inequality, please make sure you put your solution on your number line. If the equation uses a greater than or a less than, the graph is going to start with an open circle on our number line. And if the equation uses a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, the graph will start with a closed circle. So our number line is going to have an open circle on less than or greater than, or it's going to have a closed circle if it's greater than equal to, less than equal to. Okay, so we're just going to start with a couple of problems. We're going to go kind of quick on this, so if you need to pause it, feel free to do so. Our example 1, we have 3 is less than negative 5n plus 2n. Now, one thing I noticed that many people were doing is kind of drawing a line down the center of their page, down the center of the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just because I know some people feel more familiar with that. So on the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation is going to be based on where the inequality symbol's at. Now, we need to always make sure we simplify the left side, and we always want to simplify the right side before we start solving. So the left side I cannot simplify, so it's just going to be 3 is less than. Now on the right side, I see I've got negative 5n and 2n. Those are like terms because they both have the n after the number, so I can combine those. Negative 5 plus 2 would leave us with negative 3n. Now what I'm going to actually do with that is so we need to isolate the n. I want 1n, I don't want negative 3n. So to isolate my variable, I'm going to divide both sides of my equation by negative 3. Now what that's going to do is negative 3 divided by negative 3 is just going to leave us with 1n. However, I don't need to say 1, and so I'm just going to erase that. On the other side, 3 divided by negative 3 would be negative 1. But because I did this divide by negative business, that's going to take my inequality and just flip it around. So now I've got my answer. Negative 1 is greater than n. However, just to make it easy for graphing, I'm just going to make this small suggestion. When we go to graph it, we want to reverse the inequality and this is only occasionally to make sure the variable is on the left. Oh my goodness, my computer's going crazy. So what that means is we need to keep the inequality facing towards the negative 1. What I would do is I'm just going to completely flip the equation around. So I've got n. I can see the point is facing towards the end, so it's still facing towards a point. And then we've got negative 1. Now this is going to be really easy to graph. Now we said when it doesn't have a line under it, we need to put an open circle. So I'm going to put an open circle here at negative 1. The arrow is pointing to the left, so that's going to tell me my arrow points to the left. Now, that's the whole point of reversing the equation, so the variable is on the left side. If the variable is on the left, this arrow is the same as this arrow. If the variable is on the right, we would have to do the opposite. So that's why I strongly recommend this little tip here. Okay, on the next problem, we have 6x plus 2 plus 6x is less than 14. So I always start by just kind of copying down my problem. So 6x plus 2 plus 6x is less than 14. I'm going to draw my line right through that inequality so I can see the left side of my equation, the right side of my equation. And just like the last one, I see I've got like terms, 6x and 6x. So that means I have 12 total x's on this side because 6 plus 6 would be 12. I still have that plus 2. Now I'll bring down my less hand sign. And then 14, there's nothing I can do with the 14. So now I need to work on isolating x. So I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to start by getting rid of plus 2 with a minus 2. So 2 minus 2 would leave us with 0, leaving us with just the 12x. We've got less than. 14 minus 2 would leave us with 12. Now this time I'm going to divide by 12 to undo the times 12. I'm left with x is less than 12 divided by 12, which is 1. So there's my answer algebraically. My variable is already on the left, so I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to come to positive 1 on my number line. I'm going to draw an open circle because it is just less than. And the arrow, we can see the arrow is pointing to the left. And so all the numbers that are smaller than 1 would actually be considered the answer to this problem. Okay, so our next problem, we've got example 3. We have 9 is greater than or equal to negative 2m plus 2 minus 3. And draw my line down the middle of the problem. We've got 9, so I can't do anything on the left side. Greater than or equal to negative 2m, but this time 2 minus 3. I know those are like terms because neither of them have a letter, so 2 minus 3 would be minus 1. So I'm going to add 1 to get rid of minus 1. 9 plus 1 would be 10, is greater than or equal to negative 2m. Divide by negative 2 to isolate the m. 10 divided by negative 2 would be negative 5. But I said divide by negative 2. So that's going to take my inequality here in the middle and flip it around. And then I've got negative 5 is less than or equal to m. There's my solution. Now I'm going to take my problem for my graphing. I'm going to flip it around. So m, I can see the open mouth needs to be facing m, negative 5. Now this time we have the line underneath it, so that means at negative 5 I need to put a closed circle. I can see my arrow points to the right, and so the answer is going to be all the numbers that are more than negative 5. Okay, so this one, we've got a little bit of distributing that's going to happen on this. So we've got 6 minus 4, parentheses 6n plus 7 is greater than or equal to 122. I'm going to start by drawing my line. And I can see my left side's a piece of work and my right side's just that 122. So I'm going to just leave that 122 alone until I'm done simplifying the left side. So I'm going to take this time a negative 4 and I need to multiply it into parentheses. So negative 4 times 6n would be minus 24n. Negative 4 times 7 would be minus 28. And then I also have the 6. So I see that I still got my 122 on the right. I see I have like terms. I have my 6 and I've got my minus 28. They're like terms because neither have a variable. I know 6 minus 28 would be negative 22. So that's going to leave my equation. I still have my negative 24n. And I've got minus 22 now as my constant. So I'm going to isolate the variable by starting to add 22 to get rid of minus 22. So we have negative 24n is greater than or equal to 2 and 2 make 4, 2 and 2 make 4, 144. Now I need to isolate the variable, so I'm going to divide by negative 24 on each side. That leaves us with n. Now 144 divided by negative 24 would be negative 6. And I know since I said divide by negative 24, this little inequality is going to flip right around. N is less than or equal to negative 6. My variable is already on the left side, so I'm going to go straight to graphing it here. At negative 6, I put my filled in circle. The arrow points to the left. And I'm finished with example 4. Okay. Example 5, this is going to be more of the same. So we have 167 is less than 6 plus 7, parentheses 2 minus 7r. So just like the last problem, I'm going to start by taking my positive 7 and distributing. So I'm going to multiply that into my parentheses. So I have 167 is less than 6. 7 times 2 would be 14. 7 times negative 7 would be minus 49r. I'm going to combine my like terms. I see that 6 plus 14 here. So 6 plus 14 would leave us with 20 minus 49r. Now, we could rearrange it, but I'm going to start by canceling out this number that doesn't have a variable. I'm going to look to move that to the other side. Since that's a positive 20, I'm going to do minus 20 here and minus 20 over here. So that'll leave us with 147 is less than negative 49r. So I know now, since I've got negative 49 times r, I need to divide by negative 49. And when we divide by that negative, our inequality flips around. And so 147 divided by negative 49 will be negative 3. Negative 49 divided by negative 49 would be 1r, or just r. So negative 3 has to be more than r. So when I come to my equation, I'm going to just kind of flip it around. I've got r. I can see the little tip of the inequality needs to be facing r. The open side needs to be facing the negative 3. So I'm going to put my open circle this time at negative 3. And I can see the arrow needs to point to the left. And there's my graph. Okay, so example 6. This is going to be very much the same as the last one. I'm only going to do the next 2 more. So we've got negative 8x plus 2x minus 16 is less than negative 5x plus 7x. So this time when I draw my line down the middle, I can see both the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation must be simplified. So negative 5x and 7x, I'm going to start with that. Since these are like terms, I can just add the 2 numbers. So negative 5 plus 7 would be 2x. On the left side, we have negative 8 plus 2 would be negative 6x minus 16. Now we need our x's on the same side. So I almost always take the smaller x, so in this case the negative 6, to the other side. And just like if on previous equations where if we had a number we wanted to move to the other side of the equal sign, we would add or subtract it. So I'm going to add 6x to this side and add 6x to this side. Negative 6x plus 6x is going to be 0 x's left on this side, so only leaving the negative 16. On the right-hand side, we have 2x plus 6x leaves us with 8 x's. Now, we just isolate the x, so we're going to divide by 8 on either side of the inequality, and we're left with x is greater than negative 2. Now we're going to take it over here to graph it. I'm going to just kind of flip it around. So we have our x. I can see the inequality needs to open towards the x, and then I've got my negative 2. So at negative 2, I'm going to put my open circle. My arrow has to face to the right. And all the solutions are numbers that are more than negative 2. Okay, so example 7. This is going to be the last one I do. So we've got negative x is less than negative x plus 7, parentheses, x minus 2. Okay, so I draw my line down the middle of the page. On the left-hand side of the line, I don't have to do anything. I just have the negative x. On the right-hand side, though, I can see I've got a 7 in front of my parentheses. So I'm going to take that, I'm just going to distribute. So that's going to leave us with negative x less than negative x. 7 times x would be 7x. 7 times negative 2 would be negative 14. I'm going to combine my like terms. So we've got negative x is less than negative 1x plus 7x would leave us with 6x minus 14. So, like I said, I like to move the smaller x. So negative 1x, I'm going to add x to both sides of the equations. Negative x plus x would leave us with 0 is less than 6 plus 1 would be 7x minus 14. So I need to get everything away from x. I'm going to start by canceling out minus 14 with plus 14. So 14 is less than 7x. So now I'm going to divide by the 7th, which would leave us with x is greater than 2. There's our answer. Now when I come over here to my graph, I'm going to write my x first. I can see it opens towards the x, and then I've got my 2. So at 2, I'm going to put my point. I can see the arrow points to the right. So our answers are going to be all the values that are more than 2. This is not the only way you could have proceeded through the problem. You could have done a couple of steps differently, but regardless, you would end up the same answer. If you have any questions, I would like for you to write them on the left-hand side of your notes. If you don't understand what I did on a problem, please, again, write it down on the left side of your notes. Bring it to class tomorrow so that we can discuss it. Thank you.